podcast number 30 with the one and only Ryan Van Duzer.
Whoop, whoop.
Do it. Let's do it.
All right. Ryan Van Duzer. Thank
Hello.
you for being on the show.
I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, man. Thank you first for not only being on the show, but also letting me crash in your place. That's awesome, filled with 2 million bikes and 3 million pictures and
There's a lot going on in my little
postcards.
apartment.
I love it.
Yeah, man. I'm glad to have you here. You get to see all the bikes hanging from the ceiling and all my photos of family and friends. And
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. And what day is it today? It's a Wednesday. It's super hot
it is.
right now. But yeah, I'm really excited to have you in the show because I was just telling you before we started the recording that I've been watching your shows, and I feel that I'm Ryan Van Duzerized.
Good. I like to Duzerize the world.
Funny note. I just started a new weekly newsletter a week ago that I call the Chasky's Digest, which is basically 5 bullet points of things that I've watching or reading content that I find, inspiring, interesting, funny, and you were one of those bullets.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's always
It's an honor to be here with you. Be here in my own house with you.
There you go. So yeah, I mean, we're gonna talk about a lot of things like all things adventuring, endurance, sports, living in Boulder, growing up in Boulder. But before we talk about that, why don't we maybe start with telling people, sharing with the audience who Ryan is, because you do so many things that we'd love to share that with people.
Yep. I was born and raised here in Boulder. I love it. I feel very fortunate that this is my hometown.
The bubble, baby.
The bubble, yeah. And people always say, don't you ever get out of you've lived here your whole life? They say it like they're looking down on me, like I'm some sort of loser that's never seen the world. I'm like,
Hey.
Well, I travel the world about 200 days a year. So Boulder is my home base. It's a great place to come back to after I go on my adventures. But I would say, who am I in a very short amount of time? I am somebody who wakes up every day with a smile. And if I don't have a smile, which happens, I'm a human. Not every day is perfect. I find something to be grateful about. And there's so much to be grateful for in this world. I have a beautiful group of friends and family and community. I love Boulder with all of my heart. People around the world, when I meet them, wherever I am in Asia or Europe, they will know quickly that I am from Boulder and that I love Boulder and that everybody should come and visit this beautiful little town.
Yeah.
I love running. I love biking. I've been doing those sports ever since I was a young boy. The outdoors have always been very important to me. And that's essentially me in a very short nutshell.
You were saying that you love running and cycling. Did you start running and then got into cycling? How did that? How did that start?
I would say that I was a runner first,
Yeah.
and I was one of those weird kids in elementary school who would actually go on like training runs before school. Most kids hate running. Like running is the punishment for most sports, right? But I actually loved running, and I also, because I was good at it, I liked winning, and so I was very competitive. My school that I went to here in Boulder had a 1 mile race at the end of every year, and I really took that seriously, like it was the Olympics. And so I trained for that race, and I wanted to win it. And that's essentially what set me off on a life of running. Then the Boulder, of course, here in town. I've been doing that ever since I was in first grade, so 6 years old. Yeah. I've only missed it a few times in my entire life. That's my favorite day of the year. One of my best friends growing up was the son of Frank Shorter. Frank Shorter is obviously one of the legends of the sport. He's the only American ever to win a gold medal in the marathon in the Olympics. True. So I had him as a mentor and an idol. And there's so many other incredible runners here. And the other thing about running is I like just being outside.
Now, give me some Boulder. Help me with some Boulder history, maybe. Did
Okay.
Frank Shorter start it?
Frank Shorter was one of the people who started it with Steve Bosley. Steve Bosley was the head of the Bank of Boulder at the time. They were friends.
Okay.
And Frank's like, we should have a race in this town. This is the premier running town. We should have a race. So they founded the race together.
And Steve was the gentleman that joined you on a run the other day.
Oh, yeah, for the Running with Ryan.
Yeah.
That was actually his son, Cliff Bosley.
wow.
Steve started it. Now his son, Cliff, runs the Boulder.
Got it.
And I took Cliff on a little run and almost gave him a heart attack.
I could tell.
Usually I go running with people who are, elite runners, and they have no problem jogging and talking.
Yeah.
Cliff had a little rough time, so we slowed it down.
Yeah. I mean, I was watching that video and I was like, I wonder if you stop a few times.
Oh,
to
yeah.
catch your breath. And
I was running. I mean, no offense to Cliff. I was running as slow as you can without walking.
It's so funny because you talk about. I know that you like to talk to people when running. I think one of your videos where I think it was like the 15-miler, the Caballlo Blanco marathon, or I think you said that you like to talk to people, and you reminded me of the only 50-miler I've done, which was the Silver Rush in Leadville years ago. Actually, I was planning to do it this weekend, but then I realized that I was not really like. It's one of those things like I'm up for the challenge and for the pain. I love that, but I don't think I was really gonna make the cutoff. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, I decided to not do it. But that's what's giving me the, I guess, energy to just focus on something bigger, probably the Javelina.
Yeah.
But you talk about talking to people, and I'm like, I remember that race. There's a moment that I'm running, and then there's this guy who starts running next to me, and he starts talking. Nicest guy, and I'm like, oh, this is great. But there's a moment that I literally told him, I'm sorry, but I cannot talk right now. I would love to talk to you, but I'm struggling here. So
yeah, it hurts to talk. Get away from me.
I'm going to slow down because this is painful. Yeah, sometimes.
I'm one of those annoying guys who wants to talk to everybody, and I don't realize sometimes I'm oblivious that some people are deep in the pain cave, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? What's going on? Where are you from? Yeah, sweet, awesome. And they're like, stop
leave me alone.
Yeah, leave me alone.
So, growing up in Boulder, what are would you say one of your earliest memories of growing up here?
One of my earliest memories, man. I have so many, but I would say one of my earliest
favorite,
outdoor memories was, I remember getting a new bicycle for Christmas. It was under the Christmas tree. I think I must have been like 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah,
it was sparkling. Santa had brought it. I was so excited. And I started riding that bike first with training wheels.
Yeah. And
my dad would push me from behind, and I was terrified and scared, but I also loved it at the same time. And I'll never forget the day that he took the training wheels off. And I was scared again. I was like, oh my God, I'm just going to fall straight over. How is this going to happen? How does anybody ride a bike? And I figured it out. And from that moment on, I just loved the freedom of riding a bicycle.
Yeah.
It became my freedom machine. I tell everybody that's what a bike is for me. Because when you're a little kid, you can only walk a certain distance around your neighborhood. You have a very small bubble. Once you get a bicycle, then you can start exploring much further. And that's what the bike did for me.
Nice, yeah. I remember those days when I used to use the, what do you call those little wheels that you were talking about?
Oh, training wheels.
Training wheels, yeah. And yeah, I had a couple of times that I fell, but it's good times.
Yeah, for sure.
And you were saying that your curiosity for the outdoors and exploring just started when you were really young. And so you basically started running first and then started cycling. Between the two sports, or would you say there was one that you liked the best? Or
I love the simplicity of running.
Yeah.
I love that all you need is a pair of shoes.
Yeah.
And you can just run out your door. I love that.
Yeah.
And you can go run for 45 minutes to an hour and get a really good workout. Cycling's a little bit different. You need equipment and bikes and, helmets and shoes that clip in and, maybe, other things involved with biking, and you have to ride a lot longer to get a good workout.
Yeah.
But I do love where a bicycle can take you. Obviously, I've ridden my bike all over the world, thousands and thousands of miles. I would never be able to do that running.
Right.
Or if I did, it would be much slower. I like a bicycle. You can carry things. You can carry a tent and a sleeping bag and food, and you can be on the road for months at a time. So I don't know if I like one more than the other. I don't have a car. I've never had a car in my life,
Yeah.
so a bicycle is my car. That's how I
Yeah.
get around town. So I'm on a bike every single day.
Yeah.
So I ride a bike for fun, for exercise, and just for daily commuting. Running for me that's my sport when I want to go out and push myself in.
Mhm.
I'm a much better runner than a biker. If you put me in a bike race, I'm not going to do very well. If you put me in a running race, I'll do all right.
Yeah. And talking about content creation, you have an awesome YouTube channel. You put out a lot of videos on a regular basis. How did it all start for you? Like, how did you start that curiosity with making videos?
Mm-hmm. So I studied journalism at the University of Colorado.
Oh,
I got
cool.
a degree in broadcast journalism, and they essentially teach you how to be a local news reporter or news anchor. And I did an internship at 9 News in Denver, and I saw it all in the big studios and big cameras, and I thought that's what I wanted to do until I did my internship, and I was like, nah, this is not what I want to do at all. No offense to local journalists, but for me, it wasn't very happy news. There's a saying where they go, if it bleeds, it leads. And so there's just a lot of, you watch the news, it's
Right,
depressing.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
murder, it's
totally.
car crashes, it's stuff that just sucks. And, those stories have to be told, but I don't want to tell those stories. I want to tell happy, inspirational stories, more documentary style. So after that internship, I decided, I want to, be some sort of a documentarian, however that is. And so I just started running around with a little Sony Handycam and filming adventures, the stories that I wanted to tell. And I started my career on public access TV here in Boulder back in 2006. I had a TV show called Out There, and it was all about getting people off their couches and getting outside. And I ran around town highlighting a lot of the local adventures around Boulder that anybody can do. I don't want to just show off stuff that only elite athletes can do. I want people to watch the show and be like, wow, if Ryan is doing that, I want to go do that.
Yeah.
So that's essentially how I got started with making videos. I'm a storyteller, and videos for me is my medium.
One of the things that I really like about that story is that when you started making those videos for what was the channel again? The
Public access
public
TV?
access.
Yeah.
It's not that there was a job that was posted there.
Yeah.
I mean, you just went there and you created that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, I wanted to be a TV show host. I wanted to work for Travel Channel or Discovery. I thought that sounded so exciting. I get paid to travel the world and tell stories. But you have to start somewhere.
Right.
You can't just call up Travel Channel and say, hey, I'm your guy.
I'm great.
It's like going to Hollywood and saying, hey, can I be in the next action movie? It's like, no, you got to work your way up.
Right.
So I started on public access, the very bottom. You don't get paid any money to do that. You pitch your own ideas. And I went to them when I was 25 years old. And they're like, yeah, man, you can do whatever you want. This is like public access TV. So we'll give you a half-hour spot. You deliver us a show, and we'll put it on at 2 a.m.
And that evolved into creating content or videos for the Boulder Daily Camera. Is that right? Okay.
Yep. So this is right when internet video started to boom.
Right.
YouTube came out in 2006.
Right.
So it was perfect timing.
Yeah.
And the Daily Camera wanted to build up their website with some video. So I essentially started doing the same types of videos that I was doing for public access TV, but for the Daily Camera. And I would do one video a week for the Out There. And I was called the Out There guy. And I would run around and climb a mountain or go kayaking or do whatever you can do in this area and show people how accessible it is.
Like when you started making those videos, you used to have I don't know, like role models or people that you admired, like video makers, filmmakers. Who were your heroes or people you admired?
It sounds funny, but I loved the crocodile hunter. I loved his passion. I loved how goofy he was, the Australian guy.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
He's just like this, so out there and so excited and enthusiastic.
That's
and I was
awesome.
like, I like that guy. Even though like a lot of people gave him, a little bit of flack for being such a dork, I was like, he is my kind of dork, and I like him. I also liked, all the nature shows on Discovery Channel.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up traveling much. I come from a family, single mom, 4 kids. We just didn't have the money to travel. So my traveling was done through the Discovery Channel.
It's interesting. Yeah. It's interesting that when what you just said reminded me of, maybe it's not exactly the same, but I always think about this concept of, surround yourself with the people that you want to become, right? And I don't know, sometimes there's all these people that I really admire that I don't necessarily have the opportunity to meet in person, but I go to the internet or YouTube to watch their videos or I don't know, read their books. So I feel that I'm surrounded by them, or I'm learning from them, even though I'm not really meeting them in person. It's like the same thing you did. You know, you were traveling by watching videos.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And so I watched Steve Irwin and some other guys on Discovery Channel. Jeff Corwin was another big, adventure, travel guy. There's a TV show on PBS called Globe Trekker, where people
I used
travel.
to watch a guy with spike hair.
Yeah, Ian, I think, is the British guy.
Yeah.
So I loved all that stuff. And essentially, when I created my public access TV show, I was just emulating them. And I, fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
I was just like, I'm a TV host. I have a show on public access TV. Look at me go. And that was invaluable training. It was, I learned so much. I mean, I did everything. I would shoot it. I would edit it. I would host it. I would make all the phone calls and, say, hey, I'm going to come film here. So I learned all of the roles of video production.
And true hustle, right? That's
was a
something that
hustle.
I thought it was really cool from that video that you shared one time, is like you just create your own projects, and if it's up to you to make things happen.
Totally.
Right. And what kind of software did you used to use back then?
Back then, I used Final Cut Pro.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I had a little iMac. I remember coming back from the Peace Corps in Honduras, and I had, a few $1,000s to my name. And I remember buying an iMac, and this was going to be my first really nice computer.
Right.
And I used that computer to edit all of my earliest public access shows and YouTube videos.
Yeah. How was your experience at the Peace Corps?
Peace Corps was awesome. I loved it. I lived in a small village in Honduras for 2.5 years, working with at-risk youth and kids. I had done some work previously at orphanages in the Dominican Republic and Guatemala. I've always loved Latin America. And I really wanted to dedicate myself to 2 full years of service, not just a quick spring break trip, and really see if how much I could get done.
Yeah.
And I absolutely loved it.
Nice.
It was challenging for sure. I mean, I was faced with some of the biggest challenges of my life up until that point. Because life is fairly easy. I grew up in Boulder, went to middle school, high school, went to college, and, things were kind of laid out for me.
Right.
Then I went to Honduras. It was a totally different story.
Right.
It was much more difficult.
Yeah, and I also assume that it helps you to put things into perspective. Of course,
Absolutely.
sometimes we just we give things for granted. Like for instance, I was just telling you, growing up in Peru, like and now I'm living in Colorado. Like there's a lot of things that are like kind of a luxury in Peru.
Yeah.
That here just
Oh, totally.
you give for granted. So
Yeah, and I mean, and some big things too. Like I lived in a small house that didn't have running water.
yeah,
Like I had a
totally.
well behind my house. I'd fill up with buckets, and that's how I'd take a shower. I would just splash water all over myself. Sometimes I had electricity, sometimes not. So it was a much different way of life. But it was beautiful. I became very close with my community.
Yeah.
I worked in lots of different schools and with kids and with their parents. And it was just a very simple way of life. This was before internet. There's no Wi-Fi in my house.
Yeah.
Like these days, I can just like be bored and watch Netflix. Like when I'm in Honduras, like at nighttime, lights go off. You're just kind of looking at the stars
Right.
and thinking about life. And there's a lot of romance to that.
Right. Yeah, much simpler times for sure. Was that experience kind of like one of your first traveling adventures that you had that kind of kicked off, your
Yeah.
path to
Good segue.
Boom.
Boom. Yes, sir. So when I finished my service, I was there for 2.5 years. I didn't want to go directly home. I thought that would be too quick to just get in an airplane after living in a tiny village and being home in 5 hours.
Yeah,
I thought
yeah.
that would be reverse culture shock.
Right.
I wanted to take the slow road home.
Okay.
And so I thought the best way to do that would be to ride my bike. So I got on my bicycle. I had a little trailer. I packed up, a few things, tent and clothes. I gave away everything I had in my house, to my community. I'll never forget the day I was sobbing. All the kids came to my house and they were crying and hugging me. I'd really become a part of that neighborhood. And then I rode off on my bike with tears streaming down my face and a huge adventure in front of me. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never done anything like this before. I had a map. I was following a line. I knew I needed to go north.
Yeah.
And that's what kicked off a life of adventures, essentially, was that ride.
So from Honduras to
Honduras all the way to my doorstep to Boulder. So I went through Honduras, Honduras, Belize, Guatemala,
yeah.
and then all of Mexico, crossed the border at Juarez, and then went straight up into Boulder.
How many days did it take you?
I think it was 90 days, so it was like 3 months.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Or maybe it was even more. I don't remember now. It was 2005. I left in September and I got home in December. So yeah, 3 months.
Besides the experience of going to new places, you know, I assume a lot of beautiful places and, you know, different places than what you've been to. Did you feel safe in general, or how was that experience?
I've always felt pretty safe.
Mhm.
I'm pretty lucky. You know, some people don't. If you're a single woman traveling, it's not going to be as safe for you.
Right.
So I'm fortunate in that sense. But I always felt safe. And before I did this ride, my mom and her friends were like, "Oh, this is so dangerous. What are you doing? Why are you going to put me through all this stress? You know, you've heard about Mexico. It's, you know, you've seen the stories on the news. It's so dangerous, so dangerous."
Yeah.
And after living in Honduras for 2 years, I felt fine. Honduras is also a dangerous country, but
Yeah.
I was totally okay.
Right.
And I speak Spanish, and I'm, you know, pretty smart with how I navigate the world. I know when I can sense when somebody's bad news.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really have a lot of fear about people doing anything bad to me. I had fear more around my bike breaking in the middle of nowhere and not being able to fix it, or a hurricane blowing through, things that I can't control.
I was just thinking about one of your videos where I think your bike breaks into like broke.
Oh, yeah.
But it was
It's hanging right
I'm
there.
completely random because like you have so many videos that I'm like, oh yeah, it was from that one.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's the bike right there that I rode home from Honduras.
It was
that's the one.
Okay, awesome.
For all the listeners out there, I have immortalized the bike that I rode home from Honduras. Then I rode it across the country and down the east and the west coast, and it finally, the bottom bracket broke in half and detached from the frame.
Yeah.
And so now it is hanging up in my house.
Yeah. Your house is like a bike museum.
Yeah, it is. And that other one I rode across the country as well. That's a 3-speed New Belgium cruiser.
That bike?
Yeah, that one.
Across the country?
Yeah.
That thing looks heavy and
it's
hard to pedal.
Yeah, and that was the idea of that ride, was to show people you don't have to have the most expensive equipment to do these types of things. And I'm going to ride this cruiser across the country, and it was all about just inspiring people to ride their bikes more. Maybe not all the way across the country, but maybe to the grocery store or to work and their jobs. I've been a big bike advocate all my life. Like I said earlier, I don't have a car, and I truly believe in the power of the bicycle to change the world for the better.
All right. How many times have you rode your bike across the country? Because now I lost count.
I've been across America 4 times.
Okay.
And I've been from Maine to Key West down the East Coast.
Okay.
I've been from Vancouver to Cabo San Lucas all the way down the West Coast. I've ridden to Burning Man, so that was 1,000 miles from Boulder to Nevada. So I've done some big rides. I've ridden across Cuba.
That was like a couple of years ago?
Yeah, Cuba was a couple years ago, yeah.
How was that experience?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I love Cuba is the safest place I've ever ridden a bike because nobody has cars.
It's
true. Too expensive to have
Yeah.
cars, so there's not many vehicles on the road.
Right.
So you can be on the main highway and you'll see, barely any cars passing you. And if there are cars, they're used to like horse-drawn carriages and stuff on the road, so they go way around you. It's not like in America where people are on the phones and they're in a hurry and they're going 75 miles an hour. Cuba is by far the safest place to ride, and the people are super chill and awesome and fun, and
good food.
the music is fun, and
Yeah.
food and all that good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Gosh, you have done so many things. I'm overwhelmed with what to ask next. But I don't know, like what would you say was your first big trip, that you did, that kind of set the tone for like your next adventures,
Well, I mean, I didn't travel much at all growing up. Single mom, 4 kids.
Right.
Travel wasn't in the budget. When I graduated from high school, I went and lived in Sweden for a year.
Oh,
I got a scholarship from
Nice.
Rotary International to be an exchange student, essentially.
Me too.
Really?
But I was an exchange student in Kansas.
Kansas, nice. Well, there's charm everywhere. I essentially went to
I loved it.
I went to the Kansas of Sweden.
Okay.
The very southern flat part where everybody makes fun of it.
Yeah.
But I loved it. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, and so that experience gave me a taste of the world outside of Boulder. I lived with the host family. I learned another language.
And for how long? A year?
1 year, yeah,
Oh,
one
that's
full
a
year.
lot. I was like 2 months, 3 months.
Oh, really? Yeah.
It was still fun, but a year. Sweden's one of those places that I would love to go.
Yeah, Sweden has a lot of magic to it for sure. So I lived in Sweden. That experience opened my eyes to the world. I came back and went to the University of Colorado. And then 2 years into my studies, I went and traveled around the world for a year, and I saw, Nepal and Japan and Russia and Mexico and lots of other types of countries. And that's really, I was like, I want to keep on traveling for the rest of my life. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to figure it out.
Right. And that's how you decided to. Did you start like working on content, creating content, putting out videos, and since the beginning, basically?
Back then, I had a blog. This is when blogs had
okay.
first come out, and my site was Surf to Do's Man.
Okay.
And I essentially made it for my friends and family so they knew what was going on in Sweden. And this is back when it was hard to do this. Like uploading a photo was a big deal.
Yeah.
I didn't start making videos until I would say, I made a video about my bike ride home from Honduras. That was my first like travel video I made. And from that moment on, I was like, this is what I love. This is what I want to do. I want to inspire people through storytelling to get outside and explore the world.
Right. Man, you've done so many like crazy, not only trips, but like races and all kinds of things that I'm really jealous, but in a good way, of course. Like for instance, you've done the rim to rim to rim.
Yeah.
You did that like 2 years ago, maybe. Yep. And then what else? A bunch of ultra races like the popular Caballlo Blanco 50-miler that takes place in Mexico. What is the place where
the canyons, the Copper Canyons?
Copper Canyon.
Yeah. So if you've read the book Born to Run, that is the race from that book. And so I read the book and I loved it like everybody did. And I was like, I don't just love this book. I'm going to go explore. I'm going to go there and see what this is all about. And so that's why I went.
Is that how you started running ultra distances,
Pretty much.
Okay.
So I went to Burning Man in 2014 for the very first time with a bunch of friends. And I was just Googling to see if there were running clubs because I didn't want to just leave for 7 days and not get some exercise and just party every day. So I Googled running at Burning Man, and I found this camp called Pink Lightning, and they organized the Burning Man Ultra Marathon.
Right.
And I was like, what is this? Like, I had never run further than a marathon. I was definitely not in shape, but they were so inviting and fun, and it looked goofy, and it's totally flat. Yeah. So I was like, I could pull this off. Yeah. And so that was my first ultra, was the Burning Man Ultra.
Got it.
Yeah.
And then when did you do the Caballlo Blanco one?
I did Caballlo Blanco for the first time in 2015.
Okay.
I went there in 2015.
Okay.
With the hopes of running, but then there was some narco violence going on in the canyons, and they canceled the race.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So the first time I went, I didn't actually run, but I did experience the magic of that place.
Yeah.
And it only made me hungrier to come back and do it. So I didn't go back the next year, but I went back in 2017 and ran it for the first time, and that was my first 50-miler.
Was that with this group of runners? How they
the Mas Locos?
The Mas Locos.
Yeah. So Micah True, Caballlo Blanco, is from Boulder.
Right. Yeah.
And so he started this race with the idea of bringing runners from around the world to these canyons, and so we could share cultures and share love. And he was all about just love and peace and bringing people together. Sweet man. I never met him, but he had a group of friends that he brought down there, and they were called the Mas Locos.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's his thing.
Yeah, I was watching that video the other day, and it just seemed like it was such a good, fun group of people, different backgrounds, that they just run for the pure love of doing it.
Totally, and it's not competitive. Nobody cares how fast you go. It's all about just doing it.
Right.
And then the Mexicans down there in the town called Urique, they're so cool and fun, and they're so excited when we all get down there. And so it's a big familia, man.
And they just run all these distances, right?
Yeah. So the Tarahumara, the locals that live in the canyons, they run quite a bit. Yeah. And their day-to-day commutes can be, just walking from one farm to another can be 10 or 15 miles. Maybe they're not running, but they're always moving their bodies.
And they have the most beautiful running stride
Yeah. And they run in the sandals made up of cut up car tires tied on with leather.
So what I was just thinking is we have in Peru we have a similar type of sandal that is made out of tires as well.
Yeah.
That the farmers or Inca farmers people who live in the countryside, they wear. Can you talk more about why did you decide to wear jeans
Why did I wear
for
jeans?
that 50 miler?
Well, so the first time I ran the race, I didn't wear jeans. It was the second time I did. And it's a funny story because I see a lot of the locals wearing jeans. Like the kids and the men wearing jeans when they run. And I'm like, these guys are crazy. It's so hot. I mean, it's hot down there. It's like 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, if these guys are wearing jeans, I want to wear jeans too. I didn't quite know how it was going to go. Luckily, I had a pair of pretty stretchy jeans.
Yeah.
And it was fine. Like, it wasn't even that bad at all. Like, I think I could run more races in jeans for sure.
Wow.
I would not be able to run in sandals though.
So
I can't do everything. I would have to really condition my feet to the sandals. But the jeans I can pull off. Everybody was worried about the chafing, but that didn't happen.
How was that experience over like the course? How is it?
The course is it's beautiful. I mean, the Copper Canyons are stunning.
Yeah.
It's essentially, it looks like the Grand Canyon on scale. It's huge, but it's green.
Yeah.
And so, oh man, I love it down there.
Yeah.
And the course, it's pretty hard. It's not impossible, but there's a lot of sections that are steep and you're walking.
Right.
And then there's some other sections that are flat and you can run pretty good.
Right.
So, but the aid stations are great, because they're giving out pinole, which is like the local superfood, like the cornmeal, which is really cool because there's no American race that serves pinole.
Yeah, I think I've tried that once and it was good. I liked it. It was really hearty,
Yeah, and it's just a simple thing for your body to digest.
Yeah.
A lot of our energy food is complicated and our bodies can't deal.
I agree. Yeah. And so was that your first 50 miler?
That was my first 50 miler. I ran that in 2017.
Yeah.
And then my friends were like, "You got to do 100 now." And I was like, "No way, 50's enough." And 50 already stretched my limits. And so for a while I was like, "Nah, I'm never doing 100." And then they were very persuasive and they're like, "You can do it. It's fun. It's just look at it as an adventure, You're just going to run all day long, 24 hours, however long it takes you." So I signed up for the Javelina Jundred. Which is kind of a similar course to Caballlo. It's desert. It's hot.
Okay.
It doesn't have the same altitude gain and loss, but it's hot. It's also a party, and I love parties. It's kind of like Burning Man.
I was just gonna say that people wearing costumes.
Yeah.
It looks super fun. Yeah, I can totally see that. And so the course is not because we were talking about. I'm thinking maybe doing it. I just want to run a little longer to see if I can feel it, but. When I think of, I've seen videos of the Javelina, and I think of, like, is it comparable to running it on the Boulder Reservoir area, or what would you say is more technical? Because
it's more technical than that for sure. There's a lot of rocks, and I've stubbed my toes a lot. Like when it's you've run 80 miles and it's 3 a.m. and pitch black. I've definitely smashed my toes against a lot of rocks, and I have the busted up toenails to prove it. So it's not as flat as like just a Jeep road.
Right.
There are some sections that are pretty flat, but there's also sections with rocks. There's also rattlesnakes. Every time I've run that race, I've seen snakes. Last year I saw 2 rattlesnakes. There's coyotes at nighttime, shooting stars. The aid stations, they change their theme throughout the day, like their costumes. So like one time you'll be going through, they're all dressed up as lifeguards, and it's like Beach Boys music. And then you come through later, and everybody's dressed up like Christmas elves, which really adds to the hallucination because you're like, why are there Christmas carols being blasted through the desert?
Right.
Yeah, so it's an exciting course. It's very supportive. People are friendly and awesome, and I love it.
So when you decided to sign up for that race, to do that distance, I mean, did you follow any particular training plan? I know we talked about this a little bit, but
I did not follow a strict training plan.
Yeah.
I should have for sure.
Yeah.
I am not great at training for races. I just like doing races, but my day-to-day life, I'm pretty active.
Yeah.
So I went into that first Javelina very scared. I think my longest time I've ever run was 50 miles. That was the Caballlo, like months and months before. So I didn't know if I could physically just even get to the finish line. I had no clue. I had no clue how to pace myself. I had no clue what to eat or how my body would respond. And it was an adventure, as all my friends said. Yeah. And I bonked hard at mile 80 and walked from mile 80 to 90 and then picked it up and finished off. And I still had a pretty good finishing time. It was like 22 hours and 30 minutes. So I still under 24 hours, but it was hard.
And then you went back the next year.
And I went back the next year, did not train again. I had just ridden my bike all the way across the country, so my body was fit, but not running fit. And I pulled that one off in just over 21 hours, and I didn't bonk nearly as hard.
Oh, wow.
So every year I like to knock off more than an hour. And pretty soon I'll be as fast as Jim Walmsley.
There you go, Jim, if you're listening.
Yeah, buddy, I'm coming for you.
And you're going back this year, huh?
Yeah, I just signed up. Yes, sir. I just love it because I love the experience. I love the people.
Yeah.
I love going to Arizona. I love the desert. It's Halloween weekend.
Yeah.
It's like a family reunion.
Right, that's true. Now, what about longer distances? You know, now that these bigger 200-miler distances are becoming more and more popular.
Yeah, Courtney DeWalter was trying to convince me to do a 200-miler. And kind of like how I had run a 50 and people wanted me to do 100, I thought that was the stupidest thing in the world. Now it's like a 200-miler seems like the stupidest thing in the world. But, you know, hey, maybe I'll do it. It's an adventure.
That's crazy. Like this distance. Now, I've never done a 100-miler, of course, but I definitely want to do it because in my mind, I'm like, oh, yeah, the 200-miler is the new 100-miler. So now it's like, okay, yeah. Long distance.
200-mile races are like $1,000 though. They're really expensive.
Crap.
To like just the entry fee. I looked into the Moab 240 and it's like $1,000.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so you really have to save your pennies for a race like that.
And I thought that Ironman was expensive.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I guess it's several days, I assume.
Yeah. See, if you run the race really slow, you get your money's worth. If you run it fast, you're really
a lot.
You're not
a lot of sunscreen.
You're not taking advantage of everything.
A lot of water, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see. I would like to do some more fast packing adventures. You know, not a race, but like put stuff on my back, a small bivvy, food, and just go run a trail for a week or 2 weeks. That idea is exciting to me. Maybe the Arizona Trail this fall or something.
What about these races where you run around, I don't know, a mile, trail for 24 hours?
That's stupid. That's straight up stupid. There's some things that are just horrible ideas. Running around
torture.
Running around a track for 24 hours sounds like one of them.
Man, that's crazy.
I mean, that's just nuts. I mean, that takes mental fortitude to another level. Because for me, running these ultra distances, half of the fun, more than half, is the nature I get to see.
Right.
If I'm just spinning around a flat track for 24 hours, I would go insane.
Yeah, I hear you. Now, talking about cycling, because you're the master in all things gravel cycling, cycling in general, what do you think of the Dirty Kansas?
Dirty Kansas, I want to do that some year.
Me too.
I think it's great. I love that more of these types of ultra endurance events are popping up. And I also love that the average person can go out there and do it.
Totally.
Most bike races are only for pros or criteriums. You have to like really know what you're doing to ride in a pack and have the right gear. The Dirty Kansas is kind of like an ultra running race where you just ride. You're not drafting or doing any of that stuff. You don't need to know the techniques of road biking. And it's, for me, it's another avenue for people to challenge themselves, and I like that.
Yeah, it's so interesting that so I recently started getting interested in gravel cycling because I've always ridden my road bike, and then I don't know how I became aware of dirt bike or gravel bikes, and started watching videos on YouTube, and then I came across the Dirty Kansas. I'm like, this sounds like awesome fun, because you're right, like it's chill in the sense that it's not as like with road cycling, that's as elite or as intense as it can be. And people from different backgrounds do it, and I mean, gravel roads, they
take you to beautiful places.
Yeah, exactly.
When I rode my bike across the country last summer, I always knew when we hit a gravel road, we were going somewhere good. You're riding on the side of an interstate, you're like, this sucks. We're going to be stuck on the interstate and be passing cars, and our only food options are going to be gas stations. When you're on a gravel road, you're going to go somewhere magical. You're going to maybe find an old country store and some old farmers, and they just bring you to good places.
Now, talking about gravel bikes, like I know there's different kinds of bikes for different types of activities, but like for instance, and this is just for my own curiosity, because I'm looking for a bike.
Yeah.
So let's say you want to start riding on gravel, just recreational, just recreational riding. any advice on how to think about picking a bike?
It depends what your budget is.
Right.
And there are some pretty cheap-ish gravel bikes out there. Pure Cycles makes some, adventure bikes, gravel bikes that are less than $1,000. So that's a pretty good price. You want something that you're comfortable on. People ask me every day about bikes and what they should buy, and I'm not really that much of a gearhead. I don't know all the stuff about the newest and greatest and all that. I just say go and try it out, and if it feels good, that's what you want. Right. Like if you're on a bike that's carbon and titanium, but it doesn't feel good, you're not gonna love that bike. Yeah. So there's no sense spending thousands of dollars on something that doesn't feel good on your body. So just trying things out, and also knowing that you don't have to have the most expensive gear. You could go to a local bike advocacy group that sells used bicycles, and you could probably find something that would work. If you want gravel bikes, then you throw on some studded tires.
Yeah, that's true.
There are ways to do it cheaper.
What bikes are you riding these days?
So I've had a partnership with Trek for years. Mm-hmm. So I have a Trek Checkpoint gravel bike.
Okay.
I rode that across the country last summer. I also have a Trek 1120 that is a big bike packing bike, mountain bike with 3-inch tires. So it's pretty fat. I rode that down the Baja Peninsula a couple years ago. And that's made for bike packing. That's made for long days in the saddle, carrying a lot of gear.
Right.
I also have a Trek Fuel mountain bike. That's for like just ripping around on trails in Moab and here in the Colorado area. Heil Ranch, Walker Ranch, White Ranch, all that kind of stuff when you're not carrying gear. And then I have, for commuter bikes, I have Priority is another brand that I really love. So I have a Priority commuter bike and a Priority cruiser bike. For when I got to go cruising.
Where is Priority from?
Priority's out of New York City, actually.
Oh, okay.
And their whole deal is they make bikes that are very, very low maintenance. So they have carbon belt drives that aren't chains.
That's awesome.
They have internal gearing, so you don't have a derailleur that's hanging off and exposed to the elements. So I really love their bikes.
Yeah, that was pretty sweet. I watched the video where you I think you do a bike review 9 months after you bought it. Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that kind of system actually existed.
Totally. Yeah, the bikes are going exciting places. And e-bikes too. I got an e-bike from my mom recently, and it's changed her life. And now she rides all around town, whereas before she never ever rode a bike. So I like where e-bikes are taking people.
That's true. I mean, it's definitely making commute much easier, better for sure. Out of all the adventures that you've done, I mean, you've done so many. Is there one that it's always you think of like as one of the most memorable ones? I know it can be a really hard question because you've done so much, but something that comes to mind right away.
There's memorable moments on each adventure that will always stick with me. Riding through hurricane winds on the Yucatan Peninsula when I was coming home from Honduras and just being wet all day for 7 days, this torrential downpour, and how much it sucked at the time. But looking back on it, how cool it was, like that I was just out there in it. Mother Nature was just slapping me in the face and I was taking it, and it was exciting. And then once I got through all that and the sun came out, I was like, wow. I feel good. I could have easily, said, oh, this is uncomfortable and quit and gone home. But I kept trucking, kept moving forward. And that's been, my philosophy is always move forward.
Right.
Another bike ride down the West Coast. I remember camping out one night in the redwoods, the giant trees, the Ewok trees. That was a magical moment. So many, and a lot of also my best times on these adventures involve people that I meet, random strangers.
Right.
That live in the middle of nowhere, who have never met a cross-country cyclist, and they think it's crazy, and you share a meal together, and that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I like about, especially when I go to Peru and I go to the remote areas, people who you meet, and most of them are people who don't have a lot.
Yeah,
they're like the nicest people.
Totally,
they want to share their food with you.
Yep,
and it's pretty nice.
When I rode home from Mexico, or rode through Mexico from Honduras, so many people invited me into their homes and fed me meals, or they saw me in a market and they started asking questions. Who is this gringo on a bicycle? And I start telling them my story, and they're like, wow, this is so cool. And so all along the way, I met people and that really, made the adventure.
Right.
You know, it's cool to see a beautiful sunset here and there, but it's the people that I remember the most.
Right. Now, what bucket list type of adventures do you have in mind? What
Yeah.
what are these big adventures that you're thinking you'd like to do someday?
I've always wanted to go to Bhutan,
Yeah.
which is the kingdom of happiness, and it's in the Himalayas. And I've been to Nepal 3 times, and I love trekking in the Himalayas.
Yeah.
Bhutan, I think, is next level. You know, it's not, there's not nearly as much tourism there.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
and they actually the leaders of the country years ago decided that they are going to what's the word? They are going to instead of a GDP
Mm-hmm.
showing how prosperous the country is,
Yep.
they
Oh.
have gross national happiness.
Totally. I heard
And
that.
so it's all about how happy their people are.
Yeah.
And I just love that philosophy.
Yeah.
And, I'd love to go explore those mountains. So Bhutan's on my list. I still have never been to Africa, which is crazy. I'd love to go there. And there's plenty of bike rides that I still want to do. I'd love to ride from the very bottom of Sweden to the very top of Sweden in the summertime and chase the midnight sun.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, there's endless amounts of adventures.
I was listening to Rich Roll, his podcast. He was interviewing Rebecca Rush.
Oh, yeah.
Did you listen?
I didn't hear that one, but I saw it.
She talks about she went to she followed like an 1,800 kilometer or mile through the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
Oh, yeah, I saw her movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I've seen
I
it.
haven't seen it. I didn't know about it, but she was talking about it, and it seemed to be like an incredible experience.
Absolutely.
I think she was just trying to she talks about her. I think her dad. She was fought in Vietnam, and she was just trying to reconnect with him through that experience. So it looked like it was a very powerful one. So for people who, and we're just gonna wrap up this in the next 5 minutes. For people who would like to, start getting active, start riding their bikes, or start doing something that they don't know how to, what kind of advice do you have for them?
I always tell people to start small. If you want to run a marathon, that's and you've never run before, that's probably too much. You want to start with a 5K. Because if you push yourself too much and you injure yourself, you're never going to have fun. You have to have fun with what you're doing.
Right.
You have to enjoy it a little bit. Yes, biking and running can get physically difficult, but you also have to look at it as, this is my fun time. This is my free time. We only have so many hours throughout the day to choose what we want to do. If you're committing to being a runner, you want to enjoy those hours you're running, right?
Yeah.
So I say start small, have fun, smile as much as you can, hang out with good people. Look for local running clubs or bike clubs, and you'll make some new friends that way.
Yeah.
They will they will hold you accountable
True.
for your training, and they're the people you're going to hang out with after a long ride and drink beers and party with. And
That's
so
true.
it's all about the community.
Right.
So it's not about the gear, it's not about expensive stuff. A lot of people think, oh, I can't be a cyclist because I don't have enough money for a good bike, or I don't have enough money for good running shoes.
Yeah.
You can find ways to make it cheaper.
Nice. And you're planning to keep making the running with Ryan videos? Please?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I'm gonna do those. I love those. Those videos are where I go running with elite runners, and we have chats about life, and because we have our best conversations when we're running.
That's true.
And that's how
true.
I got the idea for that show. Is like, I'm just gonna go running with people,
Yeah.
and we're gonna chat and get some inspirational stories out of them, and
Yeah.
it's been really fun.
It was great. I really like all the videos you made. It was cool to see the one with Chrissy Mel.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've seen her. And Scott's and Jenny Jerks was fun as well.
Yeah.
And
Dave Mackey was a great one.
Yeah,
Courtney
Chris
DeWalter, Chris Mocko's super funny. Yeah, and for me on a personal level, it's been great to just get to know these people.
yeah.
And go for a run with them. These are some of the highest performing runners in the world, and
Yeah.
they say, "Oh yeah, I'll hang out with you and go on a little run."
Yeah, it's really cool. I think one of the biggest advantages of living in a place like Boulder is the fact that you can get to meet all these amazing people, including Mr. Ryan here. I mean, like they all live here,
Yeah.
So it's really easy to just coordinate
Yep.
the logistics. Hey, I'll meet you here, there.
Totally.
I'll meet you at your place, Ryan.
Exactly. You want to come over to my place? Sounds dirty.
Awesome. Hey, this has been fun. I really enjoy really enjoy watching your videos and the content you put out.
Thank you.
The fact that you share all this awesome like positivity in general that we need that
Yeah,
these days more than ever, right?
totally. I think so. Yeah, I think so.
So for people, if they want to connect with you or find you on social media or YouTube, where can they find you? Right.
So YouTube's where I want everybody to go.
Everybody.
And it's Duzer TV, Duzer TV. Or if you just Google my name, the videos will show up. My channel is all about inspiring people to get up off their couches by showing adventures and the beauty of the world, and a lot of environmental stuff, bike stuff, running stuff, a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank
man.
you, my
Yeah.
man.
All right.